So, a few months ago, while on my way to a wedding, I was looking for something to watch. No, I wasn't driving. YouTube on that day decided to recommend me the Johnny Two Trails video on The Amazing Rudy. I watched the video not really caring whether or not Bob's Burgers was a good show, but at best, Johnny's video was background noise. And as he went on, I started to become interested in the series, which just so happens to be on the only streaming service I'm willing to pay for. And today, I want to talk about why I didn't start watching Bob's until season 15 and why I'm an idiot for not doing so. This entire video can be summed up as to why you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Also, this show is the primary reason as to why the last two videos on King of the Hill came out when they did. I've barely been able to put the show down. So why did I wait so long to start watching Bob's Burgers? You see, back in 2011 when the show first started airing, I didn't watch a lot of adult animation. I was still a kid, well, a teen at the time. And during that time, I was just starting to watch King of the Hill, starting that show a mere 2 months after the final episode aired, and was watching the odd Simpsons episode when reruns would air. Beyond that, I watched Family Guy, and that was it for adult animation. While I've always loved cartoons, the shows I stuck to at the time were, well, whatever was airing on Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, or Disney. So things like Ben 10, SpongeBob, or Phineas and Ferb, most of which I was starting to pull away from in lieu of anime, like Naruto, Soul Eater, and Bleach. Not including my yearly watch of the first few seasons of Digimon, and anything else that was airing on Toonami. Simply put, right when Bob's Burgers started airing, I was just not watching American cartoons airing on anything. So at first, I just missed Bob's Burgers since I was mainly watching reruns of other shows. Of course, all of what I just told you happened before Bob's Burgers aired its first episode in January of 2011. By that time, I hadn't even heard of Bob's Burgers. I wouldn't actually hear of the show up until about season 2, because it was around that time that I had started picking up American Dad and The Cleveland Show. It was in watching the 3 Seth MacFarlane shows and The Simpsons that I would first learn about Bob's, and well, despite liking the 4 shows airing on Fox at the time, I thought the commercials for Bob's Burgers didn't look very good.
This January, what is the juiciest, meatiest, most mouth-watering grand opening of the year?
Gene, drumroll, please. Okay, enough.
It's Bob's Burgers, opening this January.
Gene.
On Fox.
Out of context, the series felt mediocre, and at the time, my sense of humor just didn't mesh with the style of humor that Bob's Burgers used.
This is what you ask a ghost? You know what this makes me want to do?
Eat your souls.
He got me! At least you're holding me now.
What?
Choo-choo scared of stroke victims?
Terrified. Now it's a smile.
There. Comfy? Good.
Like I said, I was a dumb teen when Bob's came out, but by the time I would have come across a commercial for the show, I would have been 13 or 14, maybe 15, and I can't be sure what the first commercial I saw was, but I do have a distinct memory of seeing the promo for Earsy Rider. A fantastic episode, but the commercial, when you haven't seen Bob's, doesn't do the series justice.
Let's ride.
Oh god, don't come here. No. Welcome!
Oh boy!
No, they broke more bottles.
Can I bring a biker with me to tell me stories?
No, you may not.
That's the sound of revenge.
This should cover the damage. Sorry there's blood on some of it.
Everyone who's got a knife, grab it! It's a fight to the death!
Love a cat fight.
Violence!
Violence? What violence?
It's going on now.
I'm out of control.
Revenge!
The final nail in the coffin for me not watching Bob's Burgers, dismissing it as a bad show, came in 2 parts. The first one was me getting my first laptop, which alongside certain websites enabled me to get super into The Simpsons, as I marathoned the entire show over the summer of 2013, moving me away from cable in general, and at around the same time as I started marathoning The Simpsons, the other part to this, at about the same time, Jay Howell, who worked on Bob's Burgers as a character designer, had worked on another series as a character designer, writer, and from what I can tell from very limited research on the matter, co-creator of the Nickelodeon show Sanjay and Craig. a show that I was outside the age range of, and I did not enjoy from the very limited amount of it that I have seen. But because from a passing view of both series, they looked similar, and the series I knew more of, I actively didn't like. I refused to give Bob's Burgers a chance, and I want to be clear. Back then, I let my biases control whether or not I would give a show a chance, and I was an idiot for doing so. If you've watched this far being like I was, having not given the show a chance, then stick around with an open mind and consider giving Bob's a chance, because you will be surprised by how amazing the show can be. I'm not talking about the episode here, but at the time of writing, season 15 is coming to an end. This season had an episode that, after marathoning 14 whole seasons and a movie, managed to hurt me emotionally, to the point where I had to stop and recover from the episode. Within 10 minutes of the following episode, which I watched back to back, I had to stop again because I was laughing so hard I couldn't breathe. So expect more Bobs on this channel. As much as I would love to talk about one of those episodes here, I wanted to walk through an early episode that shows off Bob and his family fairly well. Bonus points that we get two of my favorite side characters as well. Though before that, let's introduce our main characters. First up, we have Bob, patriarch of the family, whose dream was to run his own restaurant, which he started before the series, though his little burger place is constantly on hard times as they rarely get customers and are just barely making ends meet. For the most part, Bob acts as the straight man to his family's antics, though when pushed too far, or just when interacting with his rival Jimmy Pesto, Bob can become pretty unhinged. Bob's also married to Linda, an eccentric alcoholic raccoon lover who often breaks out into song.
Dream you were there, wearing your Christmas best.
I'm doing you, that's why I'm singing. You're doing me, so you don't sing.
Oh, like I'm not gonna sing.
She's the more openly supportive parent. Well, kind of. Both Bob and Linda are incredibly supportive of their kids, but Linda is supportive to a fault, oftentimes lying to her family to support their delusions. Though this is usually only for her sister Gail, though I can think of at least a couple times with Jean. She can usually be a little oblivious and very dramatic, which I generally don't like, but John Roberts gives Linda a genuine kindness and love for life that makes her possibly the best animated mother, rivaled only by classic Marge Simpson.
You know what I bet she never said to her daughter?
What?
Act like a lady.
Gross.
Heroes don't have to be perfect, you know? They just have to make you think bigger about yourself.
I cannot wait to watch you find your wings.
Of the children, we have Tina, the monotone boy-crazed teenager who is the most responsible child of the three, though her siblings, mainly Louise, can manipulate her into pretty much anything. Despite being the oldest, Tina isn't the sharpest knife in the drawer.
And you shouldn't copy me in math.
Yeah, well, you should get a tutor, because I got a C.
You got a C? Wait, I got a D.
Gene, the only son, however, is the attention-seeking, sometimes musically gifted jokester. Gene's often in his own world giving non-sequitur one-liners, kind of like Ralph Wiggum. Usually toilet humor, though he does branch out into other topics. Lastly, we have Louise, the youngest child of the Belchers, who is a completely amoral sociopath that is almost always either trying to make as much money as possible or is actually screwing with people who she views as stupid, for no reason other than the fact that she finds it entertaining.
Okay, why would Louise let me think that he was dead?
Oh, she just likes messing with people she thinks are stupid.
If you have ever played any tabletop RPG, Louise is firmly in the chaotic evil category.
Say it.
I rub my genitals on the couch!
We're all gonna die because of you!
Of course, for the most part, this is just where the characters are at the beginning of the series. They actually go through quite a bit of character development over the series, but that would make this video far too long. With all of that prep being said, let's run through one of my favorite early episodes of Bob Day Afternoon. The episode opens with Bob and Linda discussing how Bob's going to convince their banker to give them a loan restructuring, with less than helpful commentary from their children.
It's brilliant. There's no such thing as time.
Jane was past due and you came out fine.
No, I have a savings account at First Oceanside, so I might have some pull over there.
Though it doesn't seem to matter, as the bank immediately denies Bob his restructure and the bank manager pretends to get a phone call.
Well, I have to take this call.
That's not a phone.
Well, I still have to take it.
Bob tries to make a scene, but he is not good at it.
Ha! I'll make a scene!
This is something that most good slice-of-life comedies do. They start somewhere human that anyone can relate to, and spiral into something cartoonier. Bob's almost always does this with little to no exception. The only one I can think of that doesn't is the season 14 episode Fraud of the Dead Zombie Docupocalypse, but that one was a special episode, and even then you could easily argue that that episode did. Starting Somewhere Human, however, is a great way to keep the series grounded. For just about every episode you can believe these are real people, and after 15 seasons at the time of writing, that's impressive. Take a look at The Simpsons, probably the best comparison for this, where you could argue that they used unreliable plots as early as The Call of the Simpsons in Season 1, which was the most cartoony episode of the season. But by Season 3's Stark Raving Dad or Season 4's Marge vs. the Monorail, more cartoony episodes started popping up where they felt like they could only exist in a cartoon. Another great comparison is King of the Hill, where the most unbelievable episode is probably Hank Gets Dusted or The Accidental Terrorist, where they just go too far past the suspension of disbelief. Back to Bob, he leaves the bank almost running into a guy that's going in, and he almost gets hit by a douche in a Hummer. Upon returning home, the cops pull up. The kids return home, Louise lamenting that she has to write an essay on someone important to her when Jean notices the police. Here's where we meet Sergeant Bosco, who's one of my favorite recurring characters as he makes contact with the bank robber Mickey, another favorite. I would go into detail why I love these characters so much, but simply put, I just find them funny.
The Bleakin is not real. Stop crying, stop crying.
I'm not crying.
Stop crying.
I'm not crying.
See, they're not cops. Cops don't dance around like that. They dance like this.
Mickey orders pizza from Bob's rival Jimmy Pesto, and mere seconds after getting the pizza, Mickey fires off 9 rounds into the delivery, much to Bob's delight.
That was the worst pizza I ever had. Jimmy Pesto's is crap.
This causes Mickey to order more food, this time burgers, and after talking to Bob, Mickey invites Bob to deliver the burgers. This ultimately gets him to become a hostage when the police get too trigger happy and starts firing at Mickey after he opens the door. This causes Mickey to threaten to shoot a hostage, but if you pay attention to him, he actually looks at Bob and shakes his head no. This indicates that he's just bluffing. Mickey may be a criminal, but he's not a murderer, just someone who fell into a bad life. Regardless, Mickey and Bosco start arguing about who's trigger happier, all the while Bob is playing the straight man who cannot believe that this is his life. And after being introduced to the group, back at the restaurant, Louise decides to call over to the bank so she can interview Mickey for her essay. So one of the hard things about talking about comedy is when it works, the most you can really say is it's funny, because the more in depth you go into a joke, the easier it is to ruin it. There are of course jokes that you can explain, and in knowing the logic behind the joke, it becomes funny. But for the most part, it's best to just say the joke's funny. The problem is that there's only so many ways to talk about the humorous intent of good jokes before you're just repeating the same thing verbatim. However, sometimes you get a joke that's funny regardless of how much you explain it. And the juxtaposition of Louise going from calm and collected to screaming her tiny little head off will always be funny.
Question 1. It's my daddy!
God!
How did you first get into bank robbing?
Need some money.
All right, kiddo, we've had our fun now. Hand over the...
Daddy! My daddy's in there!
I mean, look at the way they drew her. She has nailed that pathetic, worried look, and it is perfect emotional manipulation, and I will always laugh at this joke. And there's more to the scene that adds to the joke, like the officer in the back who quickly takes off their headphones when Louise starts yelling, or the shifting of the shots of the bank and restaurant from side by side with each other to the restaurant on the upper half of the screen while Mickey is kicked back on the lower half, letting us see everyone's reaction to her antics. Only for her to immediately turn back as if nothing happened. While this isn't my favorite set of Louise jokes, I'd be lying if I said I hadn't rewatched this episode just for her overreactions. The overreaction jokes actually go away fairly quickly, which is sad because Kristen Shaw is hilarious every time they let her scream her head off.
You too, Red. What's your name, sweetheart? Shut up! It doesn't matter! Stop talking! Start working! We're all gonna die because of you!
Courtney, I think we should break up.
What? You'll never break up with me!
After a failed attempt at control, Louise becomes a designated communicator to the bank, and Linda gets to talk to Mickey, where she immediately mishears his name, calling Mickey Nicky.
This is Mickey, I'm a criminal.
Hey, Nicky!
And like I said, it's a funny joke, but the second you explain something that subtle, the humor vanishes a bit. Anyway, the other kids get to talk to Mickey from various phones around the restaurant and home, much to Bosco's chagrin. And Mickey agrees to release Tina's $35 plus interest, sending out a total of $200. Bosco then gets put back in charge of the phones as Mickey puts Bob in charge of communication so that he can play banker. Bosco then warns Bob that the police are going to handle Mickey in an hour and to tell the other hostages to hit the floor at 6 o'clock. As things start coming to a boiling point, Mickey reveals that this is the first time he's done a job without his criminal buddy Rodney. Mr. Frond, the kid's guidance counselor from the school, starts panicking, and after a call from his family, Bob makes a plea for Mickey to turn himself in. Mickey, wanting a way out, decides to call Rodney, who's in a halfway house after he was caught on a job. And after hearing everything that happened, Rodney tells Mickey exactly what he needs to hear.
Hey, Mickey, I don't know what you're up to, but count me out.
Bob makes another plea to Mickey to end things by giving himself up his way. So Mickey takes his hostages in a huddle and makes all the cops, also in a huddle, slowly swap buildings so Mickey can get a burger before he gets arrested. And Louise gets the last of her questions answered as they make their way to Fish Rocket Burgers. As things come to an end, it hits 6 o'clock and the tear gas the police snuck into the bank goes off, gassing the cops, giving Mickey the perfect opportunity to make a break for it. Unfortunately for Mickey, he fails getting tackled and arrested. Bob gets embraced by his family, who's happy he's alive, and the bank manager decides to give Bob his loan restructure for saving their day and their lives. At least until Bob's pants explode. And we get one last scene 2 weeks later where Mickey calls to ask about Louise's essay.
Hey, he wants to know what grade you got on that essay you wrote.
Oh, I never even turned it in.
You got an A.
Bob's Burgers is a show that when I was young, I really did think I was gonna hate. And if I had given it a try back then, who knows, maybe I would have. But this is a lesson that I've learned many times now, that judging a book by its cover leaves you missing some of the best content you might ever see. I was an idiot when I refused to give Bob's Burgers a try. It's not like Family Guy, where I watched it every week until I grew a distaste for what the series became in its later seasons. Or something like Teen Titans Go, where when that series came out, I watched the first 15 to 20 episodes and decided it wasn't for me. So if you haven't watched Bob's Burgers yet, and you like down-to-earth comedies that know just how to make you laugh, don't make my mistake and give the show a try, because it deserves more viewers than it has. Because right now, I'd call it the best animated show airing on TV. Though, I guess South Park could give it a run for its money with the newest season and everyone's reactions so far. Oh yeah, South Park. That's another show I was unimpressed by when I was younger and grew an appreciation for it as an adult. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Next time I'm probably looking at the King of the Hill revival as it's coming out tomorrow at the time of me finishing the script. And afterwards, I really want to come back to talk about Bob's for at least 1 or 2 more videos before I tackle something else. But we'll see how that goes.